All right, let's dive into 5 of the most dramatic, action-packed chapters in the entire Old Testament. 2 Kings, chapters 6 through 10. We're talking invisible armies, citywide famine, political assassinations, and a revolution that is going to change a kingdom forever. Buckle up. So here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll look at the mind-bending miracles of Elisha. Then, the desperate siege of Samaria. After that, we'll see God's hand in international politics. Then comes the furious rise of a new king, a guy named Jehu, and finally, his brutal purge of Baal worship. And really, the big question that hangs over all of this is pretty simple. What happens when your faith runs smack into a crisis that seems absolutely impossible? Do you just see the giant wall in front of you? Or do you see what God's doing on the other side? Let's find out. Okay, so let's jump right into chapter 6. This is where we see the prophet Elisha show God's power in ways both small and personal and, well, massive and geopolitical. The real theme here is all about spiritual sight, learning to see what's really there, beyond what our eyes are telling us. You know, the chapter opens with what feels like a pretty small problem. One of the prophets is working, and he loses a borrowed axe head in the river. Now, for him, that's a huge deal, a financial disaster. But Elijah just makes the iron float. And this isn't some cheap magic trick. No, it's a powerful statement that God actually cares about the little, everyday problems that we all face. And from there, the stakes get so much higher. The entire Syrian army surrounds a city just to capture this one man, Elisha. His servant, totally understandably, panics. All he sees is this massive enemy force. But Elisha, he just prays. And suddenly, his servant's eyes are open to a whole other reality. The mountains are filled with heavenly horses and chariots of fire. An invisible army was there the whole time. The lesson is just so clear. Our biggest battles are won or lost depending on what we choose to see. Now let's keep going. Chapter 7 takes us from a threat against one person to a life-or-death crisis for an entire city. This is an incredible story of impossible deliverance. Inside the city of Samaria, which is under siege, the situation is just horrifying. The famine is so bad, people are paying a fortune for stuff that is literally worthless, even unclean, like a donkey's head. It gets so grim that people are turning to cannibalism. I mean, this is absolute rock bottom. And right into this darkness, Elisha says something that just sounds completely insane. He declares that in 24 hours, just one day, the economy will totally flip and food will be cheap and everywhere. To a city literally starving to death, this must have sounded like the cruelest joke imaginable. But get this, the way deliverance comes is the real story. It doesn't start with the king or the army. It starts with 4 lepers, total outcasts, sitting outside the city gate. They look at their options and make a logical choice. If we stay here, we die. If we go in the city, we die. Let's go surrender to the enemy. Maybe they'll let us live. And they stumble into the Syrian camp to find it completely empty. God had made the enemy hear the sound of a phantom army, and they fled in terror, leaving everything behind. The ultimate outcasts become the saviors of the city. Okay, so now the story kind of zooms out. In chapter 8, we see God's influence stretching way beyond Israel's borders. We see his sovereignty over international politics, over famines, and even over picking foreign kings. Chapter 8 really shows us God's control in 2 incredible ways. First, a woman Elisha had helped before is saved from a 7-year famine, and she gets her land back because of a miraculously timed conversation. At the exact same time, Elisha travels to the enemy capital, Damascus, and gets directly involved in who's going to be their next king. So picture this. Elisha is talking with Hazael, an official of the Syrian king, and the prophet just stares at him and starts to weep. Hazael is totally confused. He asks, "Why are you crying?" He has no idea what Elisha is seeing in that moment. Elisha's response is chilling. He sees the future. He knows the horrific war crimes that this man, Hazael, is going to commit against Israel once he becomes king. And sure enough, the very next day, Hazael goes home, murders his master, and seizes the throne. It's just a stark reminder that God isn't just watching, he's moving pieces on a global chessboard. So with all these pieces in place, God calls up his instrument of judgment. It's finally time to deal with the corrupt, idolatrous dynasty of King Ahab. And the man for the job? A military commander named Jehu. The mission is handled with total cloak and dagger secrecy. Elisha sends a young prophet on what is basically a covert op. His instructions are simple. Get in, pull Jehu aside, anoint him as the new king, give him his divine orders, and then get out of there as fast as you can. This is the beginning of a violent, God-ordained coup. This one line, man, it tells you everything you need to know about Jehu's personality. As he's racing his chariot toward the city, a watchman up on the wall identifies him from miles away, just by the way he drives. He is relentless, he is fast, and he is laser-focused on his mission. And the judgment comes down with brutal, breathtaking speed. Jehu kills King Joram of Israel. In the chaos, he also kills his ally King Ahaziah of Judah, who just happened to be visiting. Then he confronts the infamous Queen Jezebel. She's thrown from a window, and his horses trample her, fulfilling an earlier prophecy down to the last detail. But Jehu's work isn't done. After taking out the royal family, he turns his furious energy toward the state religion they had pushed on the nation, the worship of Baal. This was a Canaanite god that Queen Jezebel had brought into Israel, and it had corrupted the entire kingdom. To cement his power and finish the job, Jehu sends a message to the elders of Samaria. He commands them to execute all 70 of Ahab's remaining sons. And they do it. They send the heads to Jehu in baskets. It's a gruesome, horrifying symbol, but it meant the total end of that dynasty. So, to finish this purge, Jehu comes up with a brilliant and ruthless plan. He announces a huge national festival for Baal. He pretends he's going to be Baal's most devoted follower ever. And this message gathers every last prophet and worshiper of Baal from all over Israel into one single temple. But here's the tragedy, the great irony of Jehu's reign. After he slaughters every Baal worshiper and demolishes their temple, his reform just stops. He was so zealous in carrying out God's judgment on Ahab's family, but he let the old golden calf idols, the original sin of the northern kingdom, remain. He obeyed God, yeah, but not all the way. And that leaves us with a really tough question. In just these 5 chapters, we've seen a God who cares about one guy's lost axe head and a God who commands the complete annihilation of a royal family. These stories force us to wrestle with the full picture of divine power, both its intimate, personal care and its terrifying, sweeping justice. And it leaves us wondering, how do we reconcile those two things?